Welcome to the Marvel 8 Mark II installation video. This video is designed to instruct new saw owners on safely and effectively setting up their new 8 Mark II. First, inspect the saw for damage and note any damages on the bill of lading. Then, uncrate the saw and re-inspect it for damages. Next, check to ensure that all standard parts are included. Before proceeding, verify the machine voltage on the nameplate matches your requirements. Use the supplied lifting eyes to lift the saw from the shipping skid. Lifting equipment must be capable of lifting 2,900 pounds. Adjust the leveling screws so that they protrude equally, about 1/2 to 1 inch from the bottom of the legs. Set the 4 floor washers where the saw will be located and place the saw onto the washers. Mark the location of the floor washers using a marker or paint stick. Lift the saw back off the washers and set them aside for now. Drill the anchor holes using the floor washers as the location template, and drive 5/8 to 11 or M16 anchors into the floor. Place the floor washers over the anchors. Lift the saw and carefully place it over the floor anchors. Partially install a nut and washer onto each anchor, but do not tighten them all the way at this time. Remove the 4 lifting eyes, 1 red channel shipping bracket, and 2 angle clip shipping brackets. Use a rag and solvent to wipe any rust inhibitor from the saw table. Machine leveling is critical to cutting accuracy. Level the saw in all directions, using a machinist level on the saw table. Use a 1 to 1.5 inch wrench on the leveling screw and make small adjustments of 1/2 to 1 turn on each leg to bring the saw into level. Once leveling is complete, tighten the nut on top of each anchor. Have a qualified electrician attach incoming power to the saw. Verify that the supply voltage matches the voltage shown on the cabinet door tags and on the label inside the electrical panel. Remove the 3 fuses and attach 3 incoming power leads to the top of the disconnect and a ground wire to the grounding lug on the electrical panel. Turn on electrical power and check phasing by inspecting the coolant pump for proper rotation, as indicated by the arrow on the motor and viewed on the window on top of the motor. Otherwise, you can verify pump phasing by pressure and flow output once coolant is installed in the saw. Pump pressure and flow will be very weak if the pump is running backwards. If this occurs, have your electrician change the phase to reverse the pump rotation. Turn off the disconnect and lock out power per your procedure until machine setup is finished. Set the coolant pan behind the saw. Place the chip pan on top of the coolant pan with the V-notch towards the front of the saw, and slide the pan about 3/4 of the way under the saw. Install the coolant pump into the back of the coolant pan and attach the column coolant hose and flushing hose to the pump. Make sure to apply thread tape or thread compound to the flushing hose threads. Slide the coolant pan the rest of the way under the saw until the front edge of the pan is about even with the front of the saw legs. Attach the column coolant hose to the fitting at the bottom of the column. Install the 2 side splash pans. If you plan to use the flood coolant system, mix the coolant per your coolant manufacturer's recommendations, and pour in approximately 20 gallons of coolant into the coolant pan. Use the feed hand wheel to retract the column all the way back. Loosen the tilt clamp handle and try tilting the saw. Just above the tilt clamp handle is a drag bolt. You will need to loosen a jam on the drag adjustment screw and slightly loosen the drag screw until desired tilt drag is achieved. Now secure the drag bolt by tightening the jam nut again. Open the upper and lower band wheel covers. Put on all required personal protection equipment. Uncoil a new saw blade and verify that the teeth in your left hand are pointed towards you and pointed down. Grab the blade with 2 hands near the center, making a figure 8, and guide the lower loop into the table opening. Slip the lower loop over the bottom wheel, into the rear blade guard, and behind the chip brush assembly. Now slip the blade into the upper section of the rear blade guard. Slide the upper loop over the top wheel and verify the blade is still in place over the lower wheel. Use the blade tension ratchet to take the initial slack out of the blade, tightening just enough that the blade comes in contact with the bolt heads of the blade guides. Use 2 hands to grab the blade and twist it 90 degrees to start it into the upper carbide guides. Now grab the blade with 2 hands near the lower guide. Twist the blade 90 degrees and start it into the lower guides. It may be necessary to lightly tighten the blade to keep the blade in place on the wheels as you slide the blade into the carbide guides. Continue tightening the blade tension ratchet until it comes to a hard stop. The blade tension stop is calibrated at the factory to achieve proper tension when fully tightened to the hard stop. When the blade is tightened to the hard stop, it actuates a blade brake safety switch. The switch is set so the machine will shut down if the blade would break or if the blade is not fully tensioned with the ratchet. Close the upper and lower band wheel covers, making sure to watch that the door interlock actuator key aligns with the safety switch. Both doors are equipped with interlock switches to prevent saw operation if the covers are open.